I am so excited that you are here for the Rooted Hormone Reset Masterclass. If we haven't met, I am Gina. I am a board certified physician's assistant, but I am also an adapt functional practitioner. So I did go through like a functional medicine training as well. And if you feel like your hormones are working against you, your moods, your cycle, your energy, or you've tried everything from supplements to seed cycling to birth control without getting real results, then this class is definitely going to be part of what we want to do to start resetting your hormones so that they're working for you and not working against you. By the end of today, you will understand how you're going to start implementing nutrition so that it is hormone nourishing nutrition. That is our rooted foundational framework for helping women get to the root cause of why they're having their symptoms instead of just putting band-aids on them. And this is something that you can start doing and really getting some symptom relief in the next 30 days. As always, this masterclass is for educational and informational purposes only. This may not be the best fit for you, your personal situation. You should always consult with a medical professional, your medical provider, before making any lifestyle or supplement changes. The information is just educational. It's not intended to imply that supplements replace medical professional treatment or advice. We are not diagnosing or treating anything. As always, you need to check with somebody before doing any of those things. So let's go ahead and dive in. There is so much out there about how you need to balance your hormones. And a lot of it revolves around restriction and elimination. And that's just, it's simply not sustainable. And it is not something that you actually need to do in order to balance your hormones. Let me know in the comments if you have tried at least one supplement, one diet, one protocol, something to balance your hormones, but you just didn't stick with it. Healing honestly does not happen inside of a supplement or a protocol. It happens with very intentional hormone nourishing nutrition. And that's what I teach all of my students, whether it's Hormone Harmony Method, my signature group program, or a rooted hormone and fertility coaching is my one-on-one program. Both of those follow this system, these steps on how you're going to start balancing your hormones simply through nutrition. So at the end of today, you're going to know what that looks like. It helps you avoid cravings, not be hangry, balance your hormones, because cortisol is a big problem for so many of us. And we're going to talk about how you eat, what you want to eat, how often you should be eating, and why this is so important because it really comes back to our metabolism. And if we are balancing and nourishing our metabolism, then we can balance our hormones too. You can lose weight, you can feel good again. It's not about restriction and elimination. That's just not sustainable, in my opinion. And make sure you stay till the end. We will be chatting all about hormone nourishing nutrition, but there's also a way you can get a personalized roadmap that is specific to you. And there will be a special offer at the end of this for you to get that opportunity. These are some of the top hormonal concerns or symptoms that I work with women. So if you're over here like nodding your head, like I can just start checking some of those symptoms off, you're in the right place. If you have irregular periods, painful periods, endometriosis, PCOS kind of falls into those categories as well. You have PMS, mood swings like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and they are horrible and controlling your mood all month long. That's an issue. If you're having bloating, you feel like something is off, even though all of your labs are normal. You have Hashimoto's, you're exhausted, fatigue, having energy crashes, you're reaching for 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee a day just to function. Maybe you're having trouble losing weight or feel like you have a really slow metabolism, or you just really want to understand your hormones better so that you can learn how to use food as medicine. I would say in traditional medicine, we focus more on symptoms, but today we're going to be taking a functional approach where we take a root cause approach and try to figure out how to piece your symptoms together so they tell us what's actually going on in your body. And that is what we do. We want strategy, not just this yo-yo dieting or something that's not going to work. This can be for busy moms, for women trying to get pregnant, all of the things. So I will start. I think sometimes it's easier to know what someone else has been through and how they know what they know so that you can also relate to that as well. And I have come from both a place of traditional medicine, of the functional path, because I've also been through it as well. I had hormonal issues for years, literally years. And I feel like I had taken every test that like Western medicine had to offer. And to be honest, it's a really hard journey. It took a really long time. It was a lot of piecing things together, but I would do it all again if that means that I just get to help women in this aspect. Like, this has been so life-changing for me that I wanted to be able to give back to other women too. And that is why women get such good results. So, this journey has led me to helping you, and that is an amazing journey for me. It started with me going to medical school to become a physician's assistant because I wanted to help people. Like, truly, I thought that was the path to healing. And I've spent 9 years in traditional medicine trying to help until I felt like that was just not an option. For me, I had done a lot of the things that you probably have too. I have done the various diets, intermittent fasting, keto, vegetarian, highly restrictive diets, trying to eliminate all the sugar, exercising more, eating less, all of those things, right? So I had to be healthy. Like, my weight was great. I just heard people come by my workstation all the time saying, "Gosh, you're just so healthy. You're always exercising, you're always eating well. Like, you just must feel so great." Yet I was struggling so much with my hormones, with my gut health, and for a majority of my life. I spent over a decade on hormonal birth control because I also believe that that was going to fix my hormones, that that was the only way to prevent pregnancy, that that was the one thing that every woman needed, right? And then I went through school, and really, when you start digging into the risks that come with things like hormonal birth control, it started to shake me a little bit. And then I was like, maybe this is not right. So when I abruptly just decided I was going to stop it, it was a nightmare hormonally. I had gained about 20 pounds. My mood swings were all over the place. They were wild. Like, I'm not sure how my now husband, put up with me because I was literally driving to work crying because my anxiety and my mood was just out of control, and I was constantly on edge. And I was like, this is not right. My husband said, this is not right. Like, you need to see someone. And so I did. I went and actually saw a surgeon. And this was initially for my gut issues. And he literally looked at me and said, I think you're just probably on your period. And that's really what's causing all of your problems. And I left there thinking, I not sure why I even came, because he wanted to try to convince me that there was nothing wrong. But my periods were still horrible. I was having really heavy bleeding and large clotting one month. The next month, it would barely be there. The debilitating cramps that would like leave me almost feeling like I was going to pass out in the car and trying to breathe through them like I was in labor. And for the first time in my life, I had horrible hormonal acne. Some of it was on my face, a lot of it was on my back, but that was an extraordinarily embarrassing experience. And you will not find a single photo that is going to talk about that or show you that that happened, because I was so embarrassed. And it got so bad, and I felt so hopeless at one point that I talked to another provider that I worked with. And the advice I got was, you should just go back on birth control. You're not trying to get pregnant. Like, I would just go back on birth control. Like, why put up with this? And I was like, something is not right here. That cannot be my only answer. So I went back to school through the ADAPT program to actually learn what I could do to help myself. And that's when I started learning about how intricate and how related your gut health and your hormones are. I went to another program and learned how intricate minerals and your hormones were. And it literally turned into this hormone nourishing nutrition because I needed to know what to do for my hormones. And that's when everything started shifting. My mood started to feel like myself again. Like, I literally felt like I had like been introduced to myself that I didn't know for over the last decade after being on hormonal birth control. My periods started to regulate. They became predictable. They became easier. I didn't have a ton of cramping. I didn't have any hormonal headaches. The hormonal acne went away. Looking back, hormonal birth control literally wrecked my hormones even more than they were and made me a raging hormonal monster. And now I have zero bloating. My periods are easy, barely any cramps. And this is all what I teach women to do inside of my programs. And we are going to start teaching you that right now. That is why you are here, because you have spent such a long time Googling your symptoms, like, what diet is going to be the best one for this? What diet's going to be the best for my PCOS? What's the best supplement that I can take for this? Like, can you imagine how much of your life you can get back? How much of your life you can start to enjoy when you're not focusing on your hormones? when you're not focusing on when your period's gonna come, when you're not worrying about weight and trying to just cope with all of the things. Let me know. Is that something that resonates with you? We're going to do a quick crash course and talk about your hormones first so that we're all on the same page when we're talking about hormones. These are obviously not a full exhaustive list of your hormones, but the ones that I think are probably the most important for you to know. Estrogen is the main female reproductive hormone. This is what actually thickens your uterine lining to help prepare you for pregnancy each month. And I talk a lot about estrogen, estrogen dominance, but estrogen is not inherently a bad thing. It plays a significant role in like how your skin looks, how your libido or your sex drive is. It helps to take care of your memory and make sure that you can remember things. It plays a role in bone health. So overall, estrogen does a lot for our bodies as women, and it's not a bad thing. Progesterone is a hormone that actually impacts mood. This is the second half of your cycle, or those 2 weeks that are before your period when you have progesterone. It helps you to, it does sustain pregnancy for you. Once you get pregnant, for the first 12 weeks of that pregnancy, your body does that. That is why progesterone is so important. It's essential when you're trying to conceive, and it's only produced after ovulation. We do not have this hormone in high levels all month long. It should make you feel cool, calm, and relaxed. If it doesn't, then there's issues going on. Testosterone. Women have testosterone too. This also plays a role in your libido. There's more studies coming out showing that estrogen may have a bigger impact on this, but this absolutely impacts that as well. But it also helps you build and maintain healthy muscle as a woman too. And it also supports your energy levels as well. Cortisol and melatonin are like our I like to call them like your internal clock a little bit because cortisol is your stress hormone and wakes you up, like gets you up in the morning, whereas your melatonin should help you sleep. And so cortisol is also your fight or flight. It helps with healing inflammation. It's good in small doses and in a regulated fashion, but when you start talking about it becoming uncontrolled or extended periods of time, that's when it becomes problematic. Serotonin matters because it's your mood, right? It's what makes us happy, but it also comes from that circadian rhythm or that cortisol and melatonin. Seeing that natural sunlight actually ends up producing serotonin, and that's why our sleep-wake cycle is so important. We also have insulin. This is what's produced in our body to help regulate blood sugar. Cortisol does play a role in this too, a little bit, but not in the same sense that insulin does. You also have additional hunger markers like gremlin and leptin that you can talk about. One signals hunger, one signals fullness. We're not going to get into a whole lot of that right now. And then you have thyroid. And I think thyroid is huge because it is impacting your metabolism and your ability to have healthy hormones and also supports your energy. So if you're here, you're probably no stranger to the symptoms on this list, right? Heavy, painful periods, lots of cramping. You could have problems with your libido, your sex drive, cravings, or you have extreme hunger. Maybe you're suffering with like some anxiety, depression, mood type of issues, PMDD, PMS. Your hair's falling out. You have days of spotting before your period starts, or it starts, it stops, it starts again. You have acne, bloating, you're just exhausted. You're having weight gain that you know is hormonally related. Constipation, feeling wired but tired at night, trouble with waking up, not feeling hungry in the morning. If you're nodding your head, let me know. It's kind of crazy because I feel like when I was put on birth control and even throughout like school and education, you're taught that hormonal birth control is going to fix your periods. And so many women feel so much worse on birth control or even after they stopped it because it really does create inflammation. It impacts your gut, it impacts your thyroid. It stops our real hormones from communicating. So when we're talking about a root cause, is it kind of a root cause? Yes, I included on this list just because I think for so many women, this causes a lot of problems. But a lot of problems for women, the reason we're put on birth control is also going to kind of contribute to that as well. I feel like this one is kind of for root causes a little bit taboo to talk about sometimes because as women, I think everything when you go and talk to somebody else is, oh, you're just stressed out. It's just anxiety. You're fine. Chronic stress and trauma do actually impact your hormones in a very significant way. But sometimes you need to help rebalance things and address that stress before you can really feel like hormones are balanced again. It has like a very compounding impact because we're not just necessarily looking at one isolated incident. It's really the cumulative effect of chronic stress your entire life, right? Um, and leaky gut and gut issues in general. So there's a lot to talk about how chronic disease can actually start in your gut, and we'll talk about gut a little bit later. But that is one big reason why so many women have hormonal issues is there's something going on in the gut. And that is something that we will talk about how to really start addressing. If you were raised in the chronic yo-yo dieting fad, I don't know. I grew up and my mom was always drinking Slim Fast for as long as I could remember, and I don't ever remember her being that overweight, but it's one of those things, right? We attach like almost morals to food, like this food is good, this food is bad, which really don't exist. We want to make sure you're doing hormone nourishing foods and forgetting like the rest. Exercise is also another type of root cause over exercising specifically. A lot of the times, this will also come with like that chronic dieting and under eating as well. Blood sugar issues. It also relates to metabolic dysfunction as well. For some reason, we have this like really big misconception that if you don't have like pre-diabetes or diabetes, you don't have a blood sugar issue. And that really just could not be farther from the truth. And I think this is really cool that we're starting to get like real-time data with continuous glucometers. So you pop them on the back of your arm and you wear them for an extended amount of time, and it tells you what is going on with your blood sugar. You get to see it in real time, and then you can actually start to understand how foods, the way you're eating, what you're eating is impacting your blood sugar, even if you don't have something like diabetes or pre-diabetes going on. You can now get these over the counter. Actually, the Dexcom is the stiletto. It's over the counter, and I think that for so many women, especially if you have like concerns for metabolic dysfunction, PCOS, you're pre-diabetic, that can be your like invaluable amount of information about what's going on in your body. Because metabolic dysfunction means we have insulin resistance, and insulin resistance turns into more testosterone, more symptoms, worsening PCOS, all sorts of things. So that is common places where I see it. I feel like a lot of us too want to be like, hey, I have this one thing, or you're like looking at this list and you're like, yeah, I could have that. Yeah, I could have that. Yeah, I could have that. Root cause does not mean one thing. Root cause means there's lots of root causes, and usually they are intertwined, more like the roots of a tree. They are all connected. And so it's not just one, it's about addressing them all as a whole. I also like to bring up like why traditional labs aren't enough, because I feel like so many women are like everything was fine. I like all my blood work is normal, but I still don't feel right. And the problem is sometimes it's so surface level, like we're scratching the surface of the iceberg and no one bothered to look any deeper. And that's a huge problem, right? Like somebody will say, I had my thyroid checked and the TSH was normal. Okay, well, TSH doesn't even actually come from your thyroid, it comes from your brain. And it's telling your thyroid to produce hormone. So if it's high, then we have a problem. If it's low, we have a problem. But what is your thyroid in of itself doing outside of that function as well, right? Because you can still have normal TSH and feel like you're tired and foggy, you're cold all the time, you're gaining weight, you have irregular periods, right? But your TSH looked fine. And that's really when we start to get into what we do inside of like the hormone harmony method is we dig into what is your thyroid doing on a cellular level, right? What is it doing when we're converting T3 to in from T4? So free T4 is the inactive version and free T3 is the active version of your thyroid. Is your body converting that well? Is your gut able to do that process for you? Do you have the mineral resources in order for this to happen? Or are you just having these symptoms of a sluggish thyroid because your resources are so depleted? The body is so stressed out. It's too busy working on inflammation to be worrying about what your thyroid is doing, right? And that's a huge part of it. Is your liver super stressed out and it's exhausted and it doesn't have the right gut microbiome to help you start detoxing estrogen? Because if you just don't have it, you can't do it, right? There's actual bacteria that can live in your gut that can produce toxins called LPS, and that toxin will break up the estrogen that's been prepackaged to be eliminated in your stool, and it will then recirculate in the body because that negative gut microbiome is there and it's not doing its job. If you're super constipated, a similar effect can happen, right? Really high cortisol and high stress levels are going to make it so that you're using a lot more minerals. If we're only using minerals for our cortisol, how can we be prioritizing detox and drainage and worrying about all these other things that we need your minerals for too? So it doesn't show that either. It doesn't show how you are digesting your food. If you're just eating it and nothing's getting absorbed and digested because stomach acid is low and it's not going to work, that's a problem, right? It doesn't show some of these non-specific things. Blood sugar is another really great example of this too, because we do a glucose and hey, your blood sugar was fine, right? Like, okay, but what does that mean as a whole throughout the day? Are you eating? Are you under eating? All of these things. You're wired but tired at night, or you wake up at 3 to 4, 3 to 4, 2 to 4 in the morning, your blood sugar is imbalanced, right? Like, this is why we go so much deeper with actual testing inside Hormone Harmony Method so I can see what types of things are going on and how to guide you through that journey. And cortisol. I think this is one that everyone talks about because it's your stress hormone. It's not really the villain, despite us kind of painting it that way. It is meant to protect you in times of danger. And that's a good thing. If I'm running from a bear, I would like to have the resources necessary in order to run from that bear, right? Like that is super, super important. It's when we start living in this state of being super chronically stressed out and constantly triggering your cortisol that it becomes a problem. It becomes overwhelm. It becomes your body is just like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. So we're just going to be in a state of exhaustion at some point because you're just getting stuck in like that survival mode. It does, in fact, when it's too high for too long, make your thyroid start to slow down. When our thyroid slows down, our metabolism does too. And that's when you get those pesky symptoms of like, I'm tired all the time. I need 5 cups of coffee to function. My weight won't budge. My periods are irregular. My mood is all over the place. And I feel like a stranger in my body. And it's not because you're broken, it's just because your body is trying to protect you. It's a good thing to have cortisol, just not in the sense of every day, all day long. And if we dive a little bit deeper into it, you can also see how we start to stress out the thyroid even more, right? Because again, it's not just about that TSH. You have your brain or that TSH that is impacting your thyroid. Your thyroid slows down your digestion, your liver. It impacts your liver. It impacts your gut, right? That's going to impact our how we're absorbing nutrients. It's going to impact how your body is able to convert as well, right? Like we want to make sure that's happening. It happens in the gut. So many things will happen downhill when we start talking about what's going on with that chronic stress when it starts stressing out your thyroid as well. Another good example of stress causing really high cortisol, it also starts to cause hormonal imbalances. So we saw the first part of this, and now you see the second part as well, where your hormonal imbalances start to happen. So it starts to impact ovulation. And if we're impacting ovulation, we're impacting progesterone. If we're impacting progesterone, this is when you start to get a lot of those symptoms a couple weeks before your period too. Anxiety, mood swings, PMS, spotting for days, right? Because cortisol and survival is your body's first thing, right? That's understandable. But now we have it that it's so high, it's causing hormonal imbalances because it's literally telling your body, like, hey, right now might not be the best time to ovulate. So it suppresses your FSH and your LH. Those two hormones are what tells your body that, hey, we need to make these follicles. One of them is going to ovulate. That's going to be the winner. And then go from there. It's suboptimal at some point. It can still happen. It can also make it stop happening completely. So it can make your cycles just completely irregular because you're not ovulating because you've suppressed your FSH and LH so much from all of the things. And a little bit more about that blood sugar. Couple of things. We kind of talked about this and covered this already, but again, it still matters even if you're not diabetic, right? So if you were like raising your hand that you are super anxious or you wake up between 2 and 4, you need coffee to function. You don't ever wake up feeling rested at all. You're shaky easily, you're irritable easy, you get dizzy easy if you're not eating all the time, or if you have like crashes after meals. You feel like you have a lot of sugar cravings, even if you're eating clean. This could actually be blood sugar. And when we start talking about blood sugar, we also go back to that survival mode, right? Like the body is trying to stay alive by balancing your blood sugar instead of worrying about your female hormones. So we're just back to telling the body that there's a bear chasing us instead of focusing on reproduction and having good, easy periods. Cortisol matters, right? Because that's your fight or flight, but it will impact, like we've talked about, all of these things, your mood, your sleep, your cravings. So if we're skipping meals, we're spiking cortisol, and that puts you back on that blood sugar roller coaster. This is where cravings come from. This is where hangry comes from. This eventually also turns into it suppressed your metabolism, your thyroid so much that I'm not even hungry in the morning anymore. And that feels like at some point it's normal because you're just not hungry. And the problem is that we need to adjust this, right? This is why when I work with clients, they are like, I've had normal labs my whole life, but I don't know what's wrong. And we start really focusing on that hormone nourishing nutrition, which in turn balances your blood sugar. This is why they start to feel so much better, is because we stop this cycle of cortisol impacting our blood sugars, cortisol impacting our hormones, and our body comes from a completely different state. So balancing your blood sugar, it means no more cravings, no more hunger, hanger. Nobody needs a, what is it, a Snickers bar anymore because you're feeling better. When you're focusing on nutrient dense foods, you no longer need sweets either because you are getting what you need. The reason we have cravings when we are like looking for something sweet and we're on that blood sugar roller coaster is because it's like the most nutrient dense food or calorically dense food, I should call it, excuse me, calorically dense food that it your body can find. So it's going to be a quick and easy way to get calories in is that. So your first hormone nourishing homework is going to be looking at a day that you actually start balancing your cortisol because we can't really balance hormones if you don't ever look at cortisol. And that means without a supplement to start with first. Um, Women will put like that they have on social media, like these moon faces and stuff like that, right? That they were so puffy. They're really kind of quoting something a little bit different than just cortisol issues because we really start looking at like Cushing's and Addison's as the most extreme version of that. But these things still matter, right? So, a way for you to start regulating your cortisol is sunlight first thing in the morning. That is one of the most beautiful ways as much as possible. If you can't get out, like especially with time change, first thing in the morning, it's kind of hard. You can do sun at noon as well. Blocking blue light at night is a really, really good part of that as well. Eating within 30 to 60 minutes of breakfast or waking, having that breakfast can be very, very regulating for your body as well. If you're used to not eating and you're not hungry, that's going to be a big shift for you. Take it slow, go easy, but that's a big one. Not scrolling on your phone when you first get up can also be helpful because the blue light that we're getting from a lot of those things it's just a lot. Slowly washing your face, slowly making your coffee, driving for your commute relaxed are also really good ways to actually show your nervous system that you are safe and we are slowing down. Actually taking a lunch break and focusing on food and focusing on eating and focusing on lunch, not doing emails and charting and like whatever else. Taking some time to do some gentle movement if you have time after meals is really good. This will also help balance blood sugars. Minimizing the blue light 1 to 2 hours before bed, or even like working on breath work, tapping, meditation, like something that just slows down. So, your homework is you're going to actually pick one of those, start implementing it. Journaling, I think, is just beautiful, especially positive affirmation journaling for most people, taking 10 to 15 minutes and putting on some blue lights or blue light blockers. It doesn't have to be anything super expensive. You can just get some off like Amazon. Some Sleep ZMs are actually a decent brand. So let's dig into the hormone nourishing foods. I don't believe that food necessarily has a moral code. I don't think that that's it. It's more about what food is going to be a hormone nourishing food, while others are just not going to be contributing to that and might actually be doing the opposite, contributing to inflammation. So we should really try to minimize them. I don't like to say you should eliminate them because I am never about restriction and elimination. I like to know what can I help you add back into your diet and where can we be less strict? Is there a part of your journey where you have to be more strict than others? Absolutely, yes. But that doesn't mean that you have to do anything crazy. I saw something the other day and her hormone recommendations were eliminating dairy and eliminating gluten. And that's just so restrictive to me. If there's no reason you need to eliminate those things, they may not actually benefit you. You don't also have to make everything from scratch, avoid every seed oil, and never go out to eat because sometimes those women and those clients are the most sick ones that I have worked with, the ones who are going to extremes. I'm not saying seed oils are healthy though. I think that there's a middle ground there, especially when we're talking about inflammation and the ratios. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I just think that you can do this and it can be easy and simple and sustainable. And that's why I call it hormone nourishing foods instead of like a bunch of restriction and things like that. You want to make sure that you are getting nutrient dense foods. Have you heard of nutrient dense foods? What does that exactly mean? It means we want real food foundations, real food pillars, pillars of hormone nourishing foods, like whatever you want to call it. But it's literally just the highest quality food that we can get within our budget. So that means the highest quality of protein. If you can, we're looking for grass fed here. We're looking for organic, pasture raised, wild caught. Those are going to be like the most nutrient dense. We want healthy fats. As women, we need fat in our diet to make our female hormones. You need them. So we have to eat them. Carbohydrates. I like to call these mineral dense whole foods. Think about your roots and your fruits. These are going to be a little bit overlapping when it comes to your fiber as well, because your fiber is going to be complex carbs and starchy vegetables, which are also going to be your roots and fruits. So you want things that are very colorful, right? Like potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, beans, plantains, squash, kiwi, bell peppers, apples, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cruciferous vegetables, asparagus, all of the things, right? Like those are the foods that we're looking for because they're going to have fiber in them. Things that I think you can still consume, but are going to be much, much lower on my list are going to be things like rice, oats, and pasta. Those are not going to be as nourishing as some of the other, and it's usually going to come back to fiber for me. Inside of Hormone Harmony Method, this is one of the first things we address. Are you eating enough? Are you eating to nourish your hormones? Are we still under eating? Because if we're doing those things, the body can't feel safe. And it's literally a foundation of your hormones is protein, right? Our protein needs the amino acids in it. They are the building blocks of our bodies. And the most bioavailable, the best sources that we can get here are going to be animal proteins. If your body is already super stressed out, I want to make its job as easy as I humanly possibly can. And this is how I'm going to do it, right? This means meat, eggs, dairy, things like that. We also want, again, the healthy fats, right? We need these to make our sex hormones. Those are our female hormones. It also is going to help you with digestion. It's going to help keep you fuller longer. It's going to help you balance your blood sugar too, right? So, all the things that we've been talking about. Your ratio of omega 3 to omega 6 matters, and we'll kind of keep talking about that a little bit. But healthy fats also play a role when you're looking at your skin, your eyes, your hair, your brain, all of these things. And then fiber and carbs. You want to make sure that this is something that we're also getting because this is where minerals come from. And as much as I would love to dive into minerals today, too, we would be here for weeks with me talking about everything in depth in the way it needs to be talked about. So we're going to stick with the easy stuff, right? We gave you some ideas on carbs that are going to be helpful. They're going to be more nutrient dense because they have fiber in them. They are also going to have minerals in them, which you need for things like making progesterone. Those are super important. We need minerals to support our thyroid health. We're going to get these most of the time from carbohydrates. This is why like a low carb diet, keto are not the best for us because they're not getting that fiber and the carbs in it like we need. Fiber and carbs are how you have a healthy PMS free cycle. Like that is literally how you do it. Starchy carbs, ancient grains, right? Those are like your oats and things like that. Those are the hormone nourishing foods, not breads, not packaged pasta, not pastries. I'm not saying that you can't ever have those things. They just lack the nutrient density, the fiber that we need to sustain blood sugar, the way that the starchy carbs do. And you don't need just to eat random things. Like you really want to make sure when we're looking at how you're eating, you're doing a hormone nourishing meal. What does that look like? So, a hormone nourishing meal is not necessarily rigid, but it gives you a framework to work within so you can make the meal how you need to, no matter what meal it is that you're eating. Instead of just handing you a recipe guide, this is how you go out to eat, and you're like, this is how I'm going to make my plate at this particular restaurant, and that is how I'm going to make it a hormone nourishing meal instead of beating yourself up because you didn't do X, Y, and Z, right? This is a really how we get away from restriction and elimination and guilt and the fear. Because if you know how to build the meal yourself, you can do it no matter where you're at. You can do it no matter what you're doing, right? So you want to start with protein, a high quality protein, like whatever it is. The example that I give, like inside of Hormone Harmony method, is that you want to go out to Olive Garden, which is a very pasta processed food type of place, right? That's okay. You can still do it. You're going to get their chicken Alfredo. And you might actually order additional chicken to add to their chicken Alfredo because their meal is so extraordinarily carb heavy that you need to focus on your protein and then you can get your carb in there that way, right? So that's just one way to look at it. High quality protein. Your healthy fat is not something you always are going to intentionally need to add, like an avocado, right? It might be that you have an animal product like an egg that already has healthy fat inside of it and you cooked it in avocado oil, so you already have that healthy fat in there as well. And then your carbohydrates. So maybe we add some potatoes for breakfast as well. Hash browns are a great example of this. And now you know how to build a meal. You can do this with any meal. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like a staple in our house is tacos because I like tacos. And I make sure that I can make this a hormone nourishing meal because I see so many influencers who are making these extravagant meals, which is really cool. I think it's gorgeous. They're lovely. But it just makes it feel like nutrition has to be so complicated and so overwhelming when it does not. I also am not a fan of like wasting money on my food. So I want to make sure whatever we get, we're going to be eating all of it. And that's another really great way of doing it too when you're building your meals out like this. You can build them out so they fit your lifestyle and you can actually listen to your body and know what you need, right? Balancing your blood sugar means eating 3 meals per day. We'll talk about this and mention it a little bit later again, but we want to make sure that we are doing that. 3 meals a day of this type of framework is important for balancing your blood sugar. I also recommend always starting with your protein first. Within our like society, we want to talk about how carbs are so easy for us to access that I think that shaping your meal around your protein first and then adding your carb afterwards is so much easier than doing it the other way around. I know that there's a huge push for proteins, and then there's like some feedback on like, oh my gosh, everything's protein based. Well, yeah, because everything in our culture has been so carbohydrate based and so highly processed carbs that we needed to kind of reset. So that is another thing to consider. So for healthy hormones and a metabolism, we have to make sure we're eating enough, right? So this is where that 3 balanced meals a day comes in. This is what's going to actually help you with detoxing because bile is produced to help you break down your food. Bile also helps you to bind up toxins and estrogen so that it can be excreted in your stools. If you're just like grazing all day long every day, you're not producing that proper amount of bile in order for that function to happen the way that it should be. So really shooting for those 3 meals a day can be very, very beneficial. If you're under eating in general, this is just a state of malnutrition, right? Causes hormonal chaos. So we want to make sure that you're getting on average, a woman needs 1,800 to 2,200 calories a day. Really depends on activity level, right? This means you can break up with a diet. You don't need to be eating 1,200 calories or restricting everything all the time either, which is great. We can actually determine what you need based on your age, your height, your weight, your activity level. Like we can do that. And so you have a way to actually adjust your maintenance calories based on you. This is something that will really make most women feel a ton better is when they are eating enough. Let's talk about foods. I hate to say it, but foods you should probably avoid or limit without falling into that restriction. These are just foods that cause inflammation. Some of these things I just think are so self-explanatory, but we'll start with seed oils. I think conventional seed oils is an issue because of the amount and quantity that we are exposed to. Their ratio of omega 6s, which is what seed oils are, or linoleic acid, and the omega 3s needs to be specific. Otherwise, it is no longer healthy and is in fact inflammatory. And so Balancing that matters. It doesn't mean you can't go out to eat. It just means when you're at home, you need to be very intentional with what you're using so that you can, in fact, balance that. We cook with extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil. And that is how I do that. We balance it with that. That doesn't mean I don't go out to eat. It doesn't mean that I don't have regular Lay's potato chips sometimes. You can have all those things as long as we are consistently making sure you're focusing on those hormone nourishing foods. Food is rarely the root cause of like a lot of inflammation with some exceptions to that. But ultra processed foods, I think most people in general, no matter what side of the fence you're on, would agree that those are probably not great, right? They don't have what we need in them to actually nourish our bodies because they are so highly processed, right? That's a problem. Same thing for like sugars, refined sugars as well. Genetically modified anything sounds like a terrible idea to me. I think that it was probably made by God the way it was supposed to be made, so probably shouldn't be messing with it. And then alcohol. I think everybody knows alcohol is probably not the best for us, but here we are. So it's probably something that you should extremely limit, if not completely eliminate, right? And so, something to think about. I will say on your healing journey, you may be better off without it than with it, but that doesn't mean that at some point you can't have some at some times, right? The other problem with alcohol is that it actually makes you reabsorb your estrogen and makes you more estrogen dominant than you were before. If you also notice, I didn't list dairy on here. I didn't list gluten on here because I don't make those general recommendations for everyone. I think that's very, very individualized. Do I have clients that I have recommended be gluten-free and be like long-term gluten-free? I do. Have I ever recommended somebody be dairy-free? No, I don't think so. And I work with women with hormonal acne and I don't know that any of them have that as a blanket statement. So some of the things that you want to restrict may depend on your hormonal goals, your health goals, like what's going on in your body. But that can be kind of just something to think about. Another food for thought here is that some foods can actually make your PMS worse. So, avoiding excessive caffeine, alcohol, fried foods, and refined sugars during those 2 weeks before your period can be helpful with just managing PMS for you as well. And I feel like most people have probably heard the saying, like, you are what you eat, but I would say you are what you absorb, or maybe what you aren't absorbing, right? So, in a functional like approach, we start looking at chronic diseases and start tying it back to your gut health. So, that's why we're going to talk about this because gut health is essential when it comes to balancing hormones. And there's some places that you can start. When you're looking at hormonal acne, when you're looking at PCOS, there typically is inflammation. It is typically also coming from your gut. The gut is a huge source of inflammation. So if you're having gut issues, you're not absorbing your food, if you're not absorbing your nutrients, that's a problem. We need to make sure that you have adequate stomach acid in order to do that as well. You can kind of think of stomach acid as the conductor of your orchestra. He makes sure everything else is falling in line downhill from that, right? And that's where it starts in your stomach. So that's super important. If you're not producing enough, it's an issue. If you're not producing enough stomach acid, bile tends to also be something we're not producing enough of. You can't bind up toxins, bind up estrogen, or excrete it. So we're kind of back to that. We're reabsorbing things we shouldn't be. Your gut also houses majority of your immune system. So this is your gut associated lymphoid tissue, and 70 to 80% of that immune system is actually located in your gut. That means your body's first line of defense for your immune system is in your gut. And if your gut is not healthy, then this is a big problem for you. Your gut also plays a huge role in mood regulation. 80 to 90% of serotonin is actually produced in your gut. That means there are more messages going from your gut to your brain than the other way around. That is why gut matters for your mood as well. And this is where you'll find a lot of women have a root cause of hormonal issues, or autoimmunity can be tied back into gut issues. So we want to understand what is impacting our gut if we're calling this a potential root cause, right? And I think some of this at this point probably is not a huge surprise to you, but it's just things that we need to talk about and say because removing them or limiting them from your diet at some point during your hormone balancing journey is going to be important. So, ultra processed foods, highly refined sugars, that actually can impact your gut microbiome in a negative way. Does this mean I never drink poppy? No, they use stevia and I still will drink it sometimes too. It just means I'm going to not go and have a bunch of this. I know this is probably unpopular, but pesticides and herbicides can actually impact your gut microbiome as well from contamination. So one big thing is just making sure you're washing your fruits and vegetables before you're eating them. We talked about the inflammatory seed oils already. This can increase inflammation. Alcohol, it can actually repopulate your gut in a negative way as well. And it can impact your gut barrier, right? It's something that we use as a solvent. Like you can use rubbing alcohol to clean with. Yeah, it's a different concentration, but it still does a similar impact on your gut. If you're drinking excessive amounts of it, it's an issue. There can actually be impact from pharmaceuticals like hormonal birth control. There are studies that show that there's an increased risk of inflammatory bowel disease. It causes different issues with like inflammation and Hashimoto's and your thyroid. It is a problem. Motrin, ibuprofen, or the NSAIDs in general, there's a warning on them that they can cause GI bleeds because we know how impactful they are for your gut. They really break down that gut lining. PPIs are things like Prilosec, H2 blockers. They lower stomach acid, and you literally need that for digestion. It is instrumental. And then chronic stress, because that also breaks down your gut lining, changes the pH level, causes your microbiome to look a little bit different. So, what does poor gut health look like? It can look like a few different things. You can have bloating, burping, belching. You could just be exhausted. For some people, a lot of their mood swings and irritability come from their gut. Nutritional deficiencies, right? Because we talked about stomach acid being low and you don't have the things you need to absorb things. Acne, breakouts, you're having a lot of acid reflux or heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, you have an easily upset stomach. I also like to call this gut rot. You eat things and you don't feel good, or digesting your food in general is just not good. So some actionable things that you can do to really try to start help aligning your gut are kind of specific to that. So, in the sense that I don't necessarily want to say this is a one size fits all, but giving you something to take home and something to do on the way, we want to try to help with that, right? Inside of my one-on-one programs, everyone does gut testing. Inside of the Hormone Harmony Method, the group program, you have the option to opt into gut testing if you feel like you need it. For some people, just balancing their diet and helping with like lifestyle things and actually supporting like how you should be digesting things and what digestion looks like will really move the needle for people. Sometimes it does not. That's when testing can be very, very impactful. I don't like to blindly say just take a probiotic, but it can have a pretty big impact for people. If you're going to do a probiotic, you want to make sure it's a probiotic and a prebiotic. Because if you just take a probiotic, it only repopulates your gut for about that time duration that you're taking it. And then when you stop it, for only about 30 days after that. After the 30 days is up, most of that new gut microbiome has gone away. Um, you also want to make sure that you are feeding the good gut bacteria too, right? You want it to stick around if you're taking the supplement. So you have to make sure that you're doing those starchy carbs, those plant-based foods, in addition to the other things. Fermented foods is another really good way to actually get probiotics and prebiotics naturally too. So like sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi, all those are really good options. I think apple cider vinegar shots can be extraordinarily helpful for people. You take it with some warm water, you take a shot before you eat your meals, and it can just really make sure that we're getting stomach acid moving in the way it should be. Collagen and bone broth can be very helpful for balancing your gut as well. They have essential amino acids in them from the animal products that help to repair things like leaky gut and stuff. And then animal proteins are essential, right? We need amino acids in order to do things. We need to make stomach acid. That's important. This comes from animal-based products. Oh, the myth about your metabolism. This might be an I love you but moment. If you are nourishing your body, you're not over exercising, you're not under eating, your metabolism doesn't actually slow down. So, this one common misconception is that as you age, you gain weight because your metabolism slows down. But that's not true. It doesn't actually slow down in your 30s or 40s. There's studies to show that your metabolism stays the same from about age 20 to age 60. It's the other things that change, the things that we can control in our lives. That is what changes it. The years of yo-yo dieting, the pharmaceuticals, alcohol, intermittent fasting, low-fat diets, under eating, toxins just get to build up over time, the liver's overburdened, all of these things that are within our control. And that is the best news, right? We can actually address your metabolism and boost it so you feel good again because of this reason. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's your cycle. So there's more than just being on your period or not being on your period when we're talking about your cycle, because I personally feel like that was the only thing I was taught in school that mattered. And there's so much more than that. In this particular example, I am going to use a 28-day cycle. Your cycle can be anywhere from 21 to 35 days, and that's normal as long as it's within that range on average consistently for you. And so this is just this particular example. So your period is the first day that you have bright red blood. That should only last for 3 to 5 days. Up to 7 days can be considered normal. And your hormones are going to be at their lowest during this phase. This is like winter for us. Hormones are at the lowest. You want to stay in and chill and just be kind of cool, calm, and collected. That's totally fine. That is very normal. You shouldn't be plagued with like extensive fatigue or exhaustion or even excessive bleeding, right? That should be all really manageable. It should be very easy. Then you start entering your follicular phase. By day 8 of your cycle, your hormones start to increase again. And when they're doing that, you start to feel your creativity return. You start to feel your energy return. You start to feel your social battery charge back up because you're getting around to do all of these things. During your follicular phase, your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone, is telling your body, hey, you should start making multiple follicles because we should try to ovulate this month and get pregnant. And then you have LH that comes along and it says, hey, you've been making those follicles. Let's have one go ahead and ovulate. And then ovulation happens. Ovulation is short and sweet, just like summer. It's only going to be around for about 48 hours, that egg is, before it dissolves if it is not fertilized. Once it goes away, we enter our luteal phase, and the corpus luteum that is left over from ovulation produces progesterone for us. Your luteal phase is beautiful when it comes to progesterone if it is working correctly, because this is your cool, calm, collected hormone. This is your like fall season of where things are winding down. This is the hormone that is responsible for keeping you pregnant if you are trying to conceive, and it is very, very important for that. The only time we produce progesterone is after you ovulate. You do not have progesterone until the last 2 weeks of your cycle. Your luteal phase should also be a consistent number of days, anywhere from 10 or 11 days, probably too short in my opinion, up to those 14 days. That is your luteal phase. It's this part of your cycle should be so consistent that once you enter it, you know when you're going to have your next period. If you are having 16 or more days of this phase, you are in fact pregnant. So, cycle awareness. I will not call this cycle syncing. I don't know that cycle syncing in the traditional sense of like needing to absolutely change how you're doing everything depending on the phases of your cycle is really backed by any sort of evidence to say that it works the way that we would like it to maybe work as women. So, I will call it cycle awareness instead of cycle syncing. Cycle awareness is just doing things that make sure they benefit you during that flow of your cycle. Your menstrual phase, again, it's like winter. It's you want warm, grounded, hearty foods that are going to be really rich in iron because you're bleeding and you need iron during that time. You shouldn't have so much bleeding that you need to take a supplement of iron. You feel like you're faint, you feel like you are going to pass out. That is not right. That is a problem. The follicular phase is similar to spraying and making sure you're getting your healthy fats to support ovulation and support your fertility, even if you don't want to get pregnant. I think that that is a very common misconception is that if I don't want to get pregnant, ovulation and my luteal phase don't matter, but that couldn't be farther from the truth because 90% of women that I work with have symptoms because progesterone is a problem for them. And then you have ovulation. This is when all your hormones peak. This is when you feel your best. You want to make sure that you are still eating during this phase of your cycle because you're going to be tempted to be like, I can just power through. I feel really good. We want to make sure we get fiber and watery rich foods to support that fertile mucus that should be happening. And this is like the summer of your cycle. And then you enter fall. That's your luteal phase. This is when, like fall, the complex carbs and root veggies start to come back into season. That's a great time to really make sure you're getting those as well. And that will also help keeping like things like bowels moving because progesterone can slow that as well. And your metabolism can actually increase by a need of 300 calories during your luteal phase. So if you find you're hungrier here, that is very much a real thing. I'm such a nerd. And so I think knowing the power of your cycle is so important because we are taught that hormonal birth control is the only way to prevent pregnancy, and you can actually use things like fertility awareness method. I have a picture here of Ovograph, and you can actually do that on your own. And so I would encourage every woman, even if you're not trying to prevent pregnancy, to actually track your cycle, track your symptoms. It will tell you so much about your body, so much about your symptoms, so much about what's going on. Like, I cannot stress that enough. Like, you need a basal body temperature thermometer. The difference between a BBT thermometer and a regular thermometer is the decimal points. One has two, the BBT has two decimal points, your regular one only has one. You need an app or a piece of paper. You cannot commit this to memory. There's no way. So you actually have to write it down or track it in some way. Kindara is an app where you can do that and will actually give you the graph like Overgraph used to do as well. And then you track your BBT first thing in the morning. You track your cervical fluid throughout the month, each and every day, and you just write them all down, and you will get some amazing information about what is going on in your body. Because at the end of the day, your menstrual cycle is your fifth vital sign, and we should be putting a lot more stock into it than what traditional medicine wants to do. All right, so that was a lot. We've talked about a lot of things. Let's recap a little bit and circle back. So, you need to eat real food, right? We want whole foods, foods with one ingredients, foods that you know what the ingredients are to a certain extent. You want to minimize highly processed foods, highly refined sugars, alcohols, GMOs, right? Eat balanced meals. Make your meal with that carb or protein first, and then put your carbon, fiber, and fat around that meal. You have to eat enough throughout the day. So, making sure you're getting those three large meals a day and you're eating within an hour of waking and tracking your cycle because there's so much more to it than just your period. And it's so much more empowering when you actually know what you're doing. So, now what? You can go and you can use hormone nourishing nutrition to heal your cycle. And you have two choices at this point. Your first option is to try to DIY it. Do it yourself. You can keep Googling things, keep canceling plans because your period showed up, sitting on the couch during family time because the cramps are too bad, and your hormones are just controlling your life. You can. It took me years of doing this. Years. Like, I went to multiple different courses on how learning how all of this works together. It took me that long. Or you can do something like joining a community of women who are going through the same journey as you with a guide who has not only done it for herself, but has implemented this proven framework for other women as well, because it can be that effective for you. We do 12 weeks inside of Hormone Harmony Method, diving into nutrition and making sure that you know the framework so well that you can continue to do it on your own even after you're done. On top of that, you also get a personalized roadmap from me based on your body and what your body needs. So it's not just going to be generic advice that you could have Googled. It's going to be advice that is very specific to you. It is tailored to you. And I guide you through that whole test so you know what it means. This is unlike any other course that I have really seen because we are including the testing as well. Hormone nutrient analysis test. We use the HTMA test. We send this directly to your house. You get to do it at home, and then you get to mail it back in. And then you know exactly what your nutrition needs to look like, what your gut health needs to look like. How is your body handling stress? We look at metabolism. We look at your thyroid. There's so much in that one test that you get to learn about yourself specifically. You have group-led curriculum. I tell you exactly how you're going to do the nourishing, hormone nourishing framework. How are you going to do and implement each of these steps? We do it strategically every other week so that you have time to not only learn, to implement and understand, and then ask questions in between that whole 12 weeks. We talk about stress, we talk about sleep, we talk about your cycle, we talk about weight loss, we talk about your thyroid. There's specific topics like PCOS, endometriosis, things like that, that inside there. There is a cycle syncing course with a special guest that you'll have access to. And then you also get a private community of women who are there to cheer you on, tell you what's working for them, and support you because that is invaluable when you feel like you've been having to do this for such a long time on your own. We have the rooted three-phase process. We start with hormone-focused nutrition and to help reset your metabolism, right? We go even deeper than we did today. Like you guys, we didn't even get to minerals. We spent an hour together already, and now we haven't even got to minerals yet. And so that's huge. We get to go so deep, make sure that it applies to you. You know exactly what you're going to be doing, and that is huge. Then we look at your gut health. How do we support your gut health? Is there something else that we need to do for gut health? Is your liver burdened and sluggish? And that is why you're not detoxing. How do we support that? And then we look at lifestyle. How do we support cortisol long term? How do we address mindset? How do we shift the reason that we got here in the first place so that you can be like balanced for years, right? Like this is an investment in your health long term, not just today. The bonus is you get to do the hair testing. I'm going to help you interpret it. You get live question and answer sessions with me after every single meeting. We have the special topics included: fertility, pregnancy, endometriosis, PCOS, right? We've worked with so many women in the best way possible. We've helped women transition off birth control, lower their A1Cs, lose weight, reverse PCOS symptoms, get rid of painful period cramps. We've helped women postpartum. We've helped women get pregnant. We've helped women with their thyroid, with their hair, with their gut health. So many things, hormonal acne, all of the things, right? But you don't have to just take my word for it. You can take their word for it, right? We have women who are sending positive pregnancy tests for the first time. We have women saying that they finally have energy to not only take care of their kids, but take care of their own health. We have women who are going on hiking trips for weeks and have the energy to do it. They weren't exhausted. We have women losing weight. We have women feeling like they are regular. Their mood is able to be something they control instead of controlling them. Hormonal acne that they've been struggling with for years. I've even worked with women who've been on prescription medications for hormonal acne, outside of just birth control that we have helped healed. We have went from irregular periods to painfully predictable periods that showed up when she was going on vacation in the best way possible. She no longer, it didn't matter. She's like, it's fine. I'm not moody. I don't have to worry about bleeding through my pads anymore. I don't have to worry about anything. I've had messages. I love this one. I was convinced I wouldn't have gotten pregnant without you. I do not personally get people pregnant, but it wasn't possible had she not taken the course because her only option was IVF. Her only option was IUI. I have helped many women do that as well. These are real women. These are real results. Moods that are level and they don't feel like they're crazy. Their hormones are not controlling them. They are no longer Googling their symptoms. Like we could be here all day with me talking about this. Like that's how much joy I get out of helping you, is that it is an irreplaceable feeling. Typically, our special for this masterclass is just $100 off, but we have a special that's going to just be for those who are waiting for the Black Friday.